Afternoon and welcome to the Committee on Higher Education. Today is Tuesday, April 16th. It's 2 p.m. in Conference Room 225, and this meeting is being streamed live on YouTube. And in the unlikely event that we have to end abruptly due to whatever technical difficulties we might have, we will reconvene any outstanding business later today, 4 p.m. in this room, April 16th, 225. And yes, we will post the notice on the legislature's website. There is a 2-minute time limit per testifier, and we are here today to consider GM 732, submitting for consideration and confirmation to the Board of Regents of the University of Hawaii, gubernatorial nominee Michael Miyahira for a term to expire 6/30/2028. And we have a number of people that have sent in written testimony and a couple who are here in person to testify. First one being Suzanne Schreiner, testifying for Synergistic Hawaii Agriculture Council in support. Is Suzanne here? Not here. Okay, we have Thomas Goya, individual in support. Mr. Goya, are you here? No, Mr. Goya is not here. And we have a number, including the governor, who have sent in testimonies, 24 in support, none in opposition. Anyone here in this room wishing to testify on this measure? Testify in support of this nomination? If not, we will bring up the nominee. Mr. Mihir, if you would like to come forward. And you're welcome to give any opening remarks before I open up to questions.
Well, thank you very much for holding the hearing. I am Mike Miyahira. I'm the governor's appointee, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to help University of Hawaii become a greater place.
Okay, members, so we have sent out to all the members a questionnaire that was submitted to Mr. Miyahira, and he was very prompt, got it that day and sent it in that night. All the questions answered. It's for your perusal. So any questions, members of Mr. Miyahira? Senator Fukuna.
I thought it was interesting that you commented, on the various campuses really being able to benefit from additional investment and upgrades.
Mm-hmm.
And since Manoa is kind of, highly congested at many times of the day, I was wondering whether or not you had any thoughts on how some of the other campuses could become locations for increased, growth and development.
Well, obviously, I think West Oahu has great opportunity. Our community continues to expand in the direction. So it just makes sense to look at what can we do with the facilities that we have out there. And another would be University of Hawaii Hilo. Of course, I come there. I can see the synergies that might exist with College of Ag and College of Tropical Ag and Human Resources. So I think there's a lot of things that we could be doing. I'm sure if we looked at the other campuses like on Maui or even Kauai, they probably have access to resources and facilities that we should really look at exploiting, see what we can do.
That's very encouraging because I think to the extent that, each campus becomes the sort of the hub for campus towns or future long-term development, that can also provide services for the surrounding community. That is really an opportunity that I hope we're able to take advantage of. I know university has been sort of a lead partner in the broadband diversity, initiative. And so if, we really look to see how we can maximize all campuses, then I think that would be a very exciting future.
Definitely. I had the opportunity to visit the University Hospital in Yokohama, Japan. It's a major healthcare facility that services the entire area that it exists. And the synergy that exists there between the university itself and the medical community was fantastic to observe. I was just amazed by their ability to take a I guess the issue is citizenship cards to every citizen. You just plug it into what looked like an ATM, and it kind of brought up all their patient records, and they indicated what they're there for. It'll queue them up for testing as well as for physician services. So it's a very impressive operation. And I can just see several synergies occurring wherever we have our, if we can develop that between university and our surrounding communities.
Thank you. That's very encouraging.
Members, any further questions? Senator Favela.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to thank you for meeting with me and having the open-minded, I'm just kind of biased because West Oahu is in my community. And I just think it's underserved and, we have colleagues that have been pushing way before I got into the square building for the West Oahu growth. And we just see it very slowly moving along. With the congestion, as my colleague just said, at the University of Manoa, why, I'm not saying you, I don't think, why can't we push forward and, really coming up with a master plan for West Oahu?
Yeah.
I don't know if we do have one, I'm not sure if it's still new here, but I think the university should come up, maybe we'll make a bill or something to come up with an actual master plan for West Oahu and other campuses that get chance to expand. Like you said, the neighbor islands have any opportunities to get things that we cannot get here on Oahu because of the overdevelopment. But going forward, right now, University of Hawaii West Campus using some of the property for solar. And I know the intention was more for education. So I think having that open mind going forward, hoping that we can look forward and having more discussion and having more opportunity on the west side to have more opportunities for education. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Senator Kidani.
Thank you, Michael, for your willingness to serve. I like what Senator Favela has said because it is, the thought of UH West Oahu, and it's a fairly new campus, was because of the making sure that our students from the west side had every opportunity they could to go to school, because for many of them from the west side have to catch the bus to school. They don't have, a vehicle, and it would take them sometimes 3 hours to get to school and 3 hours back. So this was a thought of having West Oahu. I guess in my thoughts are that I know it's not being utilized as it should. We have a chancellor that has allowed a preschool on the campus, which I don't think is a good environment for the students and to be mixed with a college kids. But that only tells me that they're not making the best use of the campus that they could. They're not looking at other opportunities for students, and it could be outside the realm of what a college usually does, because Hawaii is a small state. When we are at a point, say that there's a shipping strike again, and we have to be looking where we're going to get our vegetables and whatever from, we need more farmers, we need others. But instead of looking for those kinds of things to encourage our students and bring more students onto the campus, instead we have a preschool there, which is not what we built the college for. So I'm hoping that with your input that, the board will look at how we can energize the campus and have better use of our facilities there for the students that we were meant to have there.
To me, it's just a natural extension of the university system. I'm familiar with the commute. I used to live up in Wahiwa and commute downtown every day. And back then it was just an hour and a half. I understand it's much worse now.
I live in Mililani and it's longer than that.
So, but it just makes sense. We have the land out there on West Oahu campus. And it just, as our community population shifts in that direction, we need to attend to the needs of that community. That includes educational facilities and looking at what we can do to bring services closer to them. There's a lot to be said about remote instruction, but oftentimes it's hard or difficult to replace the in-person instruction. So I think, definitely it's something we should be looking at.
Yeah, especially too, because, we have such, not just a beautiful campus, but it was also, meant for looking at filming and that kind of industry, which has never happened because there's not been a push or even, taking a poll of the community surrounding that area on the west side, including Mililani and Wahiawa, to see if there's that kind of interest. So I really look forward to your being on the board and some better ideas coming out of the board for
Thank
that
you.
purpose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I know we had a discussion. Thank you for making an appointment and speaking with me prior to this meeting. But just to follow up on Senator Kidani's concerns, and I know you've not sit on the board before, but I'm sure you've watched some of the meetings. How would you go about bringing up issues that say not on the agenda or don't even come up for a discussion?
Well, I think the most obvious protocol would be to talk to the chair and also the subject matter chair, I guess committee chairs, to see where we are with the issues right now, and what can we do. And then from there, at that point, going to administration and taking the subject matter further.
It is my understanding that, and this is in the past, I'm not sure how it is now, but with past chairs, the administration would sit down with the chair and maybe one vice chair, or maybe two vice chairs, and they would determine the agenda, and basically it was driven by the administration. And so in the issue of the student housing, my understanding is there was a pushback not to have it on the agenda, which is why it was delayed by the chair at the time, going on the agenda. So do you think that the administration should be in control of what goes on the agenda? And
No,
if they are, when as a board member, would you speak up? Because certainly other members have not.
I think the regions should be in charge of their own agendas. The president reports to the board of regents and not the other way around. So the regions themselves should be in charge of that agenda.
We also have been criticized highly about raising the issues of student housing and holding the administration as well as the Board of Regents accountable for the issues that have occurred over many years, the student housing. Is it acceptable that the board is kept in the dark regarding some of the issues that came up, that they weren't aware of what was going on at the Board of Regents? Is there an excuse not to be aware?
No, that's not acceptable. I think those are some things that need to be addressed. I remember when my daughter first started at Manoa, the thinking was, okay, let's not stay in the freshman hall. She wanted to be among students that were focused on their education. So we put her in Johnson Hall, and when my wife and I went to move her in, we were kind of concerned about the state of that facility. But this is like over 12 years ago. And we haven't been back there since, but I'm hoping that it's better, but I haven't personally seen it. And if it's that bad, I think, yeah, it needs to be attended to right away.
So would you be proactive in wanting to get an update and visit some of these facilities to
definitely.
see what the condition is? Would you wait until they offered it, or would it be
Why
something that?
wait? If we have an opportunity to visit, why not?
But if it's not brought up, though, because you don't know what you don't know, right? I mean,
That's very true.
how would you go about?
I just
finding it out?
don't know I'm going to go.
Also, I've certainly been criticized all the time about issues being raised at the university, and a number of people from the Big Island have contacted me regarding the conditions at the campuses, that they have tried and tried again to get answers from the administration and have not. And so, I take my job seriously, and I feel that it's my responsibility not to ignore these people, not to ignore anybody raising issues. Do you feel that I should not email the Board of Regents, not email the administration when it comes to all of these issues, and just let it fall by the wayside?
No, definitely not. I think we need to know. We need to know that there are concerns in order to deal with them.
Okay, so when I do email and I do copy the Board of Regents and we don't get responses, the Board of Regents don't follow up, it doesn't appear on the agenda. So what do you think that we should do as legislators?
I think you need to keep knocking on that door, and the Board of Regents needs to be responsive to provide you with an answer.
So should I be relentless in doing this?
I think you need to have an answer.
Huh?
Yeah, that's.
Well, maybe the media needs
Goes
to
without
hear
saying,
this
yeah.
so that they can understand that these are issues that you're damned if you do and you're damned if you're not
Mhm.
when it comes to providing responses, because they don't trust from what I'm told by these people who call, they don't trust the whistleblower hotline, and they try and try again and they don't get responses. And many times they don't beg not to give their names out because they fear retaliation.
Mhm.
And so we send it either by anonymous, and it's no longer anonymous, of course, when, you know, the media puts their names or other people's names in there, which is sad that happens. But so you feel that we should be informing you folks about that.
Yes, I agree.
Do you think that some of the issues that come up in our hearings that the board should be aware of regarding the University of Hawaii?
Sure, I think so. I think all those concerns and issues need to be surfaced in some manner. And awareness creates, I think, questioning as far as the regions are concerned in terms of what really is happening. Yeah, I found over the years, wherever you have a story, there's always another 2 or 3 stories behind it. And we need to dig to find out, we get a well-rounded assessment of what really is happening.
And as I shared with you and I share with all the regions is that, you know, I don't normally will call you or challenge you or ask you about your vote or tell you how to vote. And that I know you have said yourself for me to, you know, contact you, but I always say, if you have any issues, then you can contact me. And that's normally how I then become involved in any kind of conversation with the regions, that they initiate calls, initiate emails to me as well on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Members, I do have other questions, but I will stop because you
Yeah.
have additional questions.
Yeah.
Oh, Senator Hashimoto, I didn't see you back there.
Thanks, Mr. Miyahiro, for being here, and thanks for meeting with me before. I just wanted to get this question on the record because I think going off of what Senator Kim was asking relating to student housing, I think that is something that we've talked a lot about in this committee, and I think we've all personally gone and seen the conditions of what it looks like at UH. I think you saw it 12 years ago, and let me reassure you, it hasn't probably changed in those 12 years. But I think, what do you believe is our path forward in the realm of student housing? I think the administration says they're going to work on it, but from a policy board standpoint, what are your thoughts and actions that the board should be doing to make sure we actually see some progress in this realm?
Yeah, that's a really difficult question, Senator. I haven't been involved in regions before, so I really don't know how policy development occurs. I'd like to think, however, housing is one of those things that students look at in terms of making the decision where to go and further their academic careers. And if housing has a reputation of being substandard, then it's not something in the plus column. And I'd like to think that we can bring housing up to the point where it is not something that would detract or dissuade a student from considering University of Hawaii for their academic careers.
So I think would be your definition of success in the realm of housing as you serve on the Board of Regents? Like, what do you believe would be the progress? You have a 4-year term. What would you be satisfied with during that time that can be accomplished by the administration?
Oh, wow. Challenging. I would think something that's safe and clean, secure, inviting. In terms of food service, something that's appealing to the students, and not just like what cafeteria was when I was in elementary school, a carton of milk and whatever it was, mystery meat. But I think it needs to be a place where students can reside during their stay with the university, that they feel comfortable, it invites them to be a part of the university itself, a place where they can study, where they can spend time socializing with fellow students. And really what we're looking at is their development, their personal development, and ability to relate with others.
What's your opinion on the value proposition? I know, I think at times we prioritize that it needs to be super affordable, right? But in terms of then the upkeep, that's not our priority. So I think that's probably why we're in the state that we are, right? We prioritize making sure that, there's not much cost, but yet as a result, we just have really bad dorms, right? What's the balance in your mind that we have to take a look at? I know people would get upset that the cost is going up, but what you get for it sometimes may be worth it, right? Depending on the value proposition that you're offering. How do we strike that balance?
Well, yeah, that's a good, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. But when you think about it, a lot of kids live off campus for a reason. It's because they don't like the dorms. And, frankly, to me, that is a lost opportunity. If our dorms are in better shape, the convenience of being on campus or close to campus is major, because then you don't have to spend half an hour commuting. And you can always run back to your room for books or whatever. So there's an opportunity, I think, for us to look at and re-examine the question of, what's the cost of student housing and what do we get for it? Definitely, I don't have an answer for you right now, but I think it's certainly something that needs to be looked at. And I think from what I've read in the Regent's minutes, that it's something that they're considering.
Okay. No, I hope I know you have a lot of things as a region. This is one very, very small part of your job and responsibility. But I think because it's just has become such a big issue, I think we all need to keep focused and we need to get this straight. And then of course you can move on to the other things, but I hope you will not forget about, making some progress, and we will hopefully will see some definition of success over the next couple of years in this arena. Because I think then, it's one aspect that's the university looks a little better, and then, you got to keep bettering the other areas of the university system. But I appreciate your thoughtful answers, and we look forward to what you can accomplish on the board.
Thank you. Over the past couple of weeks, I started to develop a list of issues, and that's one of them.
What is the board's region on safety, public safety or safety on the college campuses?
Could you restate that question?
So what is you guys, okay, there's the safety, security, cameras, students, faculty. What is the board regions? Do they have a stance or say what happens on the campus when it comes to safety? Have you ever come up in a meeting or any meetings that you ever heard in the previous past about anything happening?
Not that I'm aware of,
Okay.
but I would think just from an overall based perspective that it should be something that we should be concerned about to some degree.
The reason why I bring it up, and I want to bring this up to Regent Abercrombie, my concern is that what is the definition to you as a person? Maybe you don't know, maybe you can answer. What is the definition to you as a security? What is their job description as a security?
Security officer.
Yeah, security officer.
I guess making sure that the kids are safe, no violence, nothing illegal happening.
The only reason why I asked is I've been in security probably since I got out of high school, volunteered, was security officer at Campbell High School. I had my own security company at one time, Forget Fidel Security, and then other security at Hyatt Regency Maui, Maui Brews, and so forth and so on. What is our first description of force? What is the minimum force a security officer can do?
I have no idea.
Your presence. Reason why I'm bringing this up is because I'm getting numerous complaints on your guys, not yours, sorry. The University of Hawaii is training them like police officers. Hitting them, macing them, tasing them, everything you can think of. And majority of the security, you go report, right? You go to the security, you see them around the malls, around the schools. What is the age group? 20, 25, 19? No, about 40s. Nobody in their 40s are going to join the police department to take security jobs. Because what? The main purpose is to observe, and report. But they're getting beat up. So I think, and maybe your next agenda, maybe I will talk to your chair. You guys should go to investigate and audit how the security guards or security personnel, or whatever they like talk, is being treated. Because some of them is quitting, some of them is getting injured, some of them is in the hospital. So I talked to my HPD friends at the academy. No one below a law enforcement officer goes, remember that word now, law enforcement officer goes through a non-law enforcement training, like a law enforcement. Security guards are not security personnel. It's not law enforcement. They don't fall under there. They don't get the pay. They don't get the respect, but they're being trained like HPD. And that was the word. And I found out that HPD, former HPD officers are conducting these trainings at Leeward Community College. So I didn't get a chance to go because every time with the rotation, we were here at the Capitol. But I think it's a big concern that the region should investigate and find out why is these 40-plus-year-old security guards that do their job all these years, criteria had changed, and now they're getting beat up with clubs, maced in the face, and tased. I mean, you see what I'm saying? So can you remember this going forward? And I want to know what is the criteria going forward. If the school, the university, the state is liability for a suit, if that didn't come under the job description, or the job description had changed and they didn't let the employee, or employee know about this physical change, because nobody from college, 25 to 30, is going to work as a security guard and not try to be a police officer. Prison guard.
Senator, is this where the security people are doing that to the students or vice versa?
No, the student, guards that go to training
Yeah.
is getting bussed up
Okay,
just to observe and protect and report for students being neglected. What I'm saying is, why are they going to a police training for that? The Department of Defense is radio. Hey, dispatch, call police, get some guys over here on campus. That's their job,
Okay.
to observe and report, not to get beaten down like they were an inmate or a prisoner. Excuse me to the inmate and prisoners, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The next one is that I want to know if they're ready to get sued, liability for a suit going forward. Second one, at the University of Hawaii, how much students ever sued the university for not completing their task of them being educated at the university? Do you know?
don't know.
Can you find out?
Okay.
Because I'm hearing that they had students, but they made it so hard for them to do that because they went there thinking that Professor Donna Kim is going to be teaching a class. And then I went over to custodian Fivella was teaching a class. I'm not saying that bad, but that's how it is. So they wanted to get their money back because Professor Kim is not teaching the class. But they made it so hard to get refund, so hard to find one way of doing it. Now, the students who could barely afford Professor Kim's class now fall to the wayside, not with any education or any way of getting paid back because they don't have lawyers. They don't have nobody advocating for them. So I just want to know, when is these things, like how Senator Kim and my previous senator said, how can they come to you guys when the senator from your higher ed emails you guys stuff and we get nothing put on the agenda? So how is these kids in TV land would know how they can advocate themselves to the border regions on the abuse and employees on the abuse that they're having on campus and on state property, to trust that you guys are going to pick it up at the region? And that's my concern.
I'll get back to that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Senator Kinani.
That kind of leads me to a question that I would like to ask you, as once you are confirmed to the board, that you bring up at a meeting to see if the board has ever done a survey of high school principals as to some of the reasons why their graduates decide not to attend the university and go away. Because it would be interesting to find out if there's something that they perceive, something they hear, something that the university doesn't provide. Because this is, without this kind of knowledge, we don't know how we can better the universities.
That's a good question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a matter of follow-up as well. So on some of the responses that we do get back from the administration, and let it be known that during session and especially during the budget briefings, we do ask a lot of budget questions. But does the board ever review those responses to see whether or not they are correct and accurate? Again, you know, you don't know what you don't know. And how do we qualify whether or not what responses we're getting
I have no idea.
is accurate? You know, because when you get complaints from faculty, complaints from students or parents regarding or raising up issues and that they completely deny, how do we know that?
I don't know.
Yeah. The same thing here. You know, how do we know that those are legitimate responses and that they're not other problems that's actually there? So qualifying those. You have extensive experience in assisting businesses with financial matters, right? And have you encountered a company where they have positions that have remained vacant for like over 7 years? Do they keep these positions vacant? How does outside businesses handle vacancies?
You either hire or you outsource. But if it's a position that is critical to the operation, then it's something usually that's addressed as soon as possible.
So do you think that the board should review the vacancies and the length of time these vacancies have been on the books at the
That's
university?
probably a good idea. Yeah.
Because I don't ever recall, I know every year we look at vacancies and some years we have, including this year, I believe, doing away with positions that have been vacant over so many years, I think over 4 years. And of course, there's a pushback of us not doing it. One of the reasons for that is that, and we found this out, I think, in one of our hearings, and that the university takes all of the positions and they sweep the money from all of the vacancies, meaning they take all the money, they leave the positions, but they take all the money from those different colleges and divisions and like College of Ed. Because the College of Ed came in and asked us for positions. And so the question we asked is, don't you have vacancies? And they said, well, we can ask for the position back, but there's no money because the money was swept. So now we have to come in. And so, but those positions remain on the books because they can't fill it. Why? Because they took the money. So it's not so much as they cannot fill it because they can't find people, but they won't fill it because they took the money out. So how do you think that we address that? Because they don't do that in the private sector, do they?
No. I mean, if you don't need the position, you get rid of it. And yes, you redeploy the money, but at the same time, the question is, how does that affect your operation and your ability to achieve your goals and objectives?
Okay. Yeah, well, that'll be interesting to see and hear what how the regents would address that. And I've told you this, and I tell the regents all the time, is that I don't like to have to send emails to them or to the administration. I don't like to have to ask all of these questions, but if the Board of Regents are not going to follow up and they're not going to ask and it's not going to get resolved, then as legislators, we do have that oversight, and that's our responsibility. And I believe that's the voters and the taxpayers and the students that pay tuition want us to,
Sure,
or want somebody.
Yeah.
And if it's not going to be the Board of Regents, then who? Who should be the one asking?
No, I think you folks need to let us know when you think there are questions that need to be asked and issues that need to be addressed.
So did you think it'd be fair if you were to come back before us in 4 years for another 4 years for confirmation? Is it fair to hold you accountable for your 4 years and your record?
Definitely. Yeah, I would expect that.
So I think that's what we've done. And of course, it's been cherry picked as to when we do that, we're doing it fairly, or we're holding a regent accountable for something that, I don't know why they're not accountable for not knowing about the housing, but certainly we were criticized for that. So, but you think that's, you come before us, you understand that, right? That your record, you come now, you don't have a record, but you are telling us and you have in writing some of the things that you're going to do. And certainly it's fair that we question you in 4 years as to how much you accomplished or what you've done.
Sure, I would expect that. You know, in the private sector, you perform or you don't. If you don't, then you should work out elsewhere, somewhere more suited to your capabilities and skills.
Should it matter if you serve with aloha, or is that all that's important?
Well, I think, you know, from a cultural perspective, there's some of that, but at the same time, if you're not accomplishing what needs to be dealt with, then your ability to achieve goals and objectives are questioned, I think. So, you know, while there needs to be some humanity built into the way you do things, if you're not moving forward, then it doesn't matter.
So are you afraid to serve because we asked these questions
No.
of previous people before you?
No, not really.
Okay.
You know, I've served on in other organizations before, and as a board member for other organizations, we have to ask tough questions sometimes. And if people don't like it, that's unfortunate. But you know, when the health and vitality of the organization are at risk, they need to be asked and they need to be addressed.
Finally, you wrote an article, Codes on Conduct Help Family Business Owners,
Mhm.
on 4/14/2018. And you said in that article, don't avoid conflict. Learn how to manage conflict effectively and deal with the problems as quickly as possible, because left to fester, small problems can grow to become big, hairy monsters.
Yes.
And so I guess my question to you is, you know, it seems as though that the UH administration, as well as the Board of Regents, like to avoid conflict. And so a lot of times things aren't put on the agenda because it might be of conflict, it might make them look bad. The issue of Graham and what was going on was certainly avoided. They didn't want to come up, and when we did bring it up at the legislature, of course, we were criticized for doing that again.
Well, at that point, it became a big hairy
Yes,
monster.
it became a big hairy monster. When it comes to us, it's a big hairy monster.
Yeah.
When people wait and then they call me as a last resort, it's already a hairy monster, and we try to bring it up as nicely as we can. So what do you plan on as far as making sure there's things that come up at the university that don't turn into big hairy monsters?
Yeah, the only thing I can see at this point is, I guess, I would continue to ask questions and ask, what are we doing to resolve the issue? And if it's not being taken care of properly, you know, then we should think of something else that is another way to approach the problem.
What happens when you ask the question, you get an answer, but it doesn't necessarily resolve it, and you're not sure? For example, one board member said at one of their meetings, we learn more from watching the legislature's hearings, the Senate hearings, than we do from what we get from the responses. And that was on the Cancer Center, the early clinical trials that came up, because they give a broad overview, but they don't give them all of the issues and the problems. And so they think all is well. You know?
Then I think there's an issue in terms of properly laying out what's happening. And, you know,
So would you challenge them as far as
Sure.
what they're
Yeah.
bringing up?
you know, the question is always, you know, like we talked about earlier, well, you know, we don't know what we don't know, but at the same time, in real life is nothing ever goes well according to plan. There's always a fly in the ointment somewhere. There are always issues that come up, and the question is, what are they? Are they terminal issues? Are they things that have to be dealt with? And I think disclosure is important.
And I hope that when the legislature do bring up issues or bills regarding the university, that the regions would sit back and say, why are they bringing this up? Is that an issue? Is that something we should be looking into? Because if we've looked into it and resolved it, then maybe we don't need a law. And I always ask that, can't you do this now? Why do we need a bill? Why do we need a resolution? Why do we need a law? Why do we need a study if that's something that the regions can address?
Sure.
Yes.
You know, I think you don't want to waste your time.
Exactly.
So if you're raising it, that means it's an issue that we need to look at. We shouldn't ignore it.
You know, sitting here listening to this discussion, it just reminded me of something that think we've discussed before, is that a lot of times the regions don't know what's going on because it's not brought to their attention until they sit and happen to watch a committee hearing.
Mhm.
So what they hear from a committee hearing and what they've heard from the president or somebody else is two different things. And it just dawned on me that I think from now on, I am going to do this in my committee of education, I'm suggesting other committees do this, to send their boards or members copies of the agenda so they know what's on the agenda and they can ask, why is this on the agenda?
That's a good idea.
So,
But they do get it. I know that the regent's secretary will do provide them, or keep them, I think they. do
we
updated.
hope they
Yeah.
do, but I'm not, sometimes when I,
But watch out, you might
meetings, I
get an
think.
article written about you if you send them too many stuff.
no, but I think that's how we know that
Mhm.
they know, they're aware if they are getting agendas, so.
Or they're letting them know when your hearings are, they can watch it for themselves and come
Correct.
to their own conclusions.
Correct,
Right? Rather than you
Definitely.
telling them,
Yeah.
they come to their own conclusions.
correct.
Just to follow up, I mean, what Senator Kim said, since I came to this building, I love these two committees with these two ladies, very thorough. And I never ever once thought this, seeing Senator Kim bring these things up, of ever them being attackful, vindictive, or, cherry picking as it was brought upon. If you have nothing to hide, and this is what I'm saying to you because you still new and you ain't got nothing really to hide. If you have nothing to hide, you won't be combative
Mhm.
and guilty. And that's what I see when people come and attack these ladies and saying, oh, you're being this, you're being that, you're being, and I realize like, wow, they're the ones have the issues. So I hope as you being a board region and share with the rest of the region and people in TV land to know that that's not our intent. Our intent that our students have a safe, and faculty have a safe learning environment and watching our taxpayers' money. So when she brought up the private sector to you about positions being filled, why doesn't like, you still new, maybe you can find out for us, why the region don't take a stand and say, hey, these positions needs to be gone? Because they cannot keep using it. I call it something different, they get their own words, but I call it a slush fund. So during the Mauna Kea incident with our Hawaiian community blocking the access road, a group of students, Senator Kim can remember this, I don't remember all the names, but she's better than that with me. We had asked the question, why was this on the expense? Potato chips and juice and crackers and whatnot. These students went to do research on the Mauna. There's so much time that students went drive, a 2-hour drive from Hilo, going to the Mauna. Zero.
Hmm.
They did everything in the hotel room. So why did you take slush fund vacation money to go up there and analyze the Hawaiians on the Mauna, about the Mauna, everything about the Mauna, and you do it in your hotel room? None of them went to the Mauna. So when she found all this out, of course, they're gonna make all kinds of excuses, not safe, the transportation, blah, blah, blah. But what was your intent? If she didn't find that, region wouldn't know, taxpayers wouldn't have known, nobody would have known that they went on vacation with some students. No intent to doing what they said they was gonna do. But then they get mad at us or get mad at Senator Kim to blowing the whistle on the fact that they're using these positions for slush funds. So that's something that I think maybe when you go in there with fresh eyes, fresh ears, fresh everything, let them find out what they're gonna do with these open positions and what is the penalties of using the money without coming back to the legislation, without telling you guys that they're gonna use this money for Z instead of A. Because they should be held accountable, because we have to hold accountable everything that we do in spending our taxpayers' money. So they should be too.
Notice. Yeah.
That's my
Thank you.
closing. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Kim.
One more thing. So in the private sector, when they do budgeting, is it zero-based budgeting that they do?
No,
They do,
we do surplus. I mean, we're there to make a profit. So our budgeting is all geared towards making a profit.
Right, but
Yeah.
I'm saying as far as setting up the budget, because the way the state does the budget is once we give you the base budget,
Mhm.
you don't justify the base. You have the base and every year you come in for more or new projects, and then some of it get added to the base. And I think that's the same thing at the university, why the Regents doesn't necessarily see all the vacancies, see all the details, because it's this, well, this is what we have, this is what the new things we're asking for. So that might be one of the reasons. And at the ledge, when COVID happened, there were a lot of cuts, COVID cuts. And so we have been restoring the COVID cuts, but some of it on the Senate side, we haven't put it back into the base. It's been reoccurring, non-reoccurring. And they would like it to be reoccurring because they don't want to have to be accountable each year for justifying some of that added costs. So I was just wondering in the private sector, as far as, do they have to justify all the spending, or it's just the new stuff?
No, I think every year when we do budgets, these runners with the bank, yeah. And with the companies that have been part of every budget cycle, we have to justify everything.
So is that something that you would ask the administration to justify with the Board of Regents
Sure.
as far as?
I think the challenge is, the university system is a big organization.
Mhm.
So going line by line is going to be quite daunting. I think we need to be focused and look at the specific issues. And
Mhm.
I'm glad you folks brought up the question of vacancies. And that's a good question in terms of how many, how long have they been vacant, and what happened to the money allocation.
Well, because, we go line by line for the whole state. University is just one small portion of it.
Right,
But I
right,
don't know line by line exactly. Of course, the budget chair, certainly and his staff does that.
Yes.
But I would think that the administration would have to look at that and be more transparent on their budget and how
Mhm.
they address the issues,
Mhm.
on whether or not things that they did in the past really is relevant today, and some of that money can be justified, or how is that money being moved around
Mhm.
when it comes to the university.
Sure. Yes.
So just so you understand, when we go through the budget, if they're saying, well, we've got the money restored, but it's non-reoccurring, we're not going to give it to them, but we just want them to be able to justify what are those spending,
Mhm.
or what are they spending it on.
Yeah. I think it just makes good sense to do that.
So the other thing is that Senate Regent Abercrombie, I understand, was the only region to vote no on the budget, only because this past year, because they got it 1 week before, and he didn't feel there was enough time to review the voluminous amount of stuff in the budget. So would you be asking for more time? If
Sure.
you don't feel that you have enough time?
Definitely. I think any budget of any complexity, you need time to really understand it.
Right.
I think just getting it like a week before, that's difficult.
Yeah.
That's challenging.
Well, with your background, hopefully you'll be able to
Well,
look at it.
even with that, I think you need to understand the operation in order for the budget to make sense. So they go hand in hand. It's like looking at a car. You don't buy it without checking it out and kicking the tires.
Right.
You want to make sure that you understand what's happening.
So maybe you need more than one board meeting to go over the budget.
That could possibly be. I'd like to think that the regions have good comprehension of the functions and the operations of the university. Otherwise, the budget may not make any sense.
Right, and the concern that we also have is that with the new president coming in, that we want to make sure that that president has a say as to what they think the budget should be,
Mhm.
instead of inheriting a budget that is in the base and not necessarily being able to change some of those things.
Mhm.
That would be
Yeah,
fair, right?
Yeah, I don't know how the budget cycles work, but definitely I think any new president coming in is going to probably take a little while to get acclimated, but at some point they'll want to look at the vision and put their print.
Yeah, because they'll be held accountable.
Yeah.
It's like every time a governor comes in, he inherits it at the very last minute, the budget that goes to the ledge, and he has a hard time, to be able
Sure,
to put
yeah.
his mark on it, because all of that was done months before he
Right.
won the election. So,
Mhm.
okay, members, any last questions?
Yeah, there's one
Yes.
question, and it's Spike Money Brain. Going forward, being on the region, now when it come to giving raises to professors or anybody in their little groups of how they do them. My concern was when we was asking a question about 4 or 5 professors or whatever there was at the time had a increase of 40 to 60% pay raise. But the part that was concerning that I didn't learn, that was the second raise in the same year to be making 250,000. So Senator Kim was questioning at that time the board regent, I guess chair, whatever, and told her, you was on the board regent prior to being in this position. You didn't think to ask the president, and they didn't. They didn't question it, and the answer we got was they're all good team players. But isn't that you guys, not you because you knew, but wasn't their job to keep things in check? That, hey, wait a minute, Senate President, sorry, not Senate President, President of the university. Hey, they just haven't raised beginning of the year. And look like we're giving them, some of them 30 to 50% raise, and they all gonna be making 250,000. You don't think that's a concern, President? Right? Nobody questioned him. It just went one by. So I just hope, that they're listening and for you to go forward to please question those things, because it really raised a red flag to me that he had that kind of authority on the taxpayers' money, just because there was a good team player. And, he didn't like my question, what I told him, but that's irrelevant for now. But, we're all good team players here. You know what I mean? We all want raises, but you gotta be accountable to the money that you're giving out to
Sure.
people.
Yeah.
Not because they're your pals, we're part of your hula hoop. You know what I mean? But anyway,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Members, if there are no other questions, Mike, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
This will go to the full Senate for a vote. I'm
Right.
not sure when the president will schedule it, but we'll let you know.
Okay, thank you very
We
much.
look forward to working with you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, members, we have one resolution, HCR 205, urging the University of Hawaii to adopt and publicize a statewide equity statement. And we have Deborah Halbert from the university in support. Deborah, thank you for waiting.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice
Good
Chair, member
afternoon.
of the committee. I will stand on my written testimony in support, but I will address the why would we have you sign this. As you know, across the nation, there have been many states who have actively taken a position against any kind of diversity, equity, or inclusion work and have been attacking their universities for trying to create an inclusive environment for their students. We are very grateful to have this heard by you as well as the House of Representatives as an effort to show that a state can support its university in offering a quality education to all of its citizens. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Angela?
Aloha Committee, Angela Melody Young testifying on behalf of CARES in strong support. So, I want my students whom I represent from DOE schools and their moms who care about college to go to a school where there is so much equity provided. I'm very excited about testifying for this. I love the University of Hawaii. A strategic plan with a framework focused on a number of important values will help reach goals. What is the definition of diversity and equity and inclusion? Diversity is making sure students are aware of those that are from racially diverse demographics and making sure that they are able to cooperate and work and study in a functional manner with those who are different and not at the same socioeconomic status and political perspective as others. Equity is addressing bias, harassment, and discrimination with equal representation that, for example, complaints from marginalized students are addressed in the same way that wealthy and prosperous students are getting attention for their problems. Inequity is when policy favors rich and wealthy and socially advanced students versus the lowly from public housing. Equity is scheduling something for a poor student, just as you would for a rich student. Equity is not dismissing the student who has nothing. testifying in strong support also to improve the quality of health and improving equity, improving the lives of the students, and making sure that good values are represented at the school, such as accessibility, making sure students can get resources and school supplies and classes, making sure that anti-racism remarks stop with their abusive comments and racist remarks towards others that are different from other cultures, making sure belonging is represented, making sure no one feels left out or isolated, justice, making sure students know what is morally correct and fair, and respecting people who are different from different demographics, and inclusion, committing to pursuing deliberate efforts to make sure the campus is a safe place where differences are welcomed and respectfully heard, and that every person feels a sense of belonging and inclusion in building a
Thank you,
critical
Angela.
mass of diverse groups of students. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify in this measure? If not, members, questions? If not, we're going to go right into decision-making. Members on GM 732 for the confirmation, advise and consent on Michael Miyahira. Recommendation is we advise and consent. Is there any discussion? If not, Madam Vice Chair, if you take the vote, Chair votes aye.
For GM 732, Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye, Senator Fukunaga.
Aye.
Senator Hashimoto
Aye.
and Senator Favela.
Aye.
Measures adopted.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair.
And HCR 205, urging the University of Hawaii to adopt and publicize a statement, statewide equity statement. Recommendation is to adopt as is.
HRC 8CR
Chair
205,
votes aye.
Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye, Senator Fukunaga.
Aye.
Senator Hashimoto. Senator Favela.
Aye.
Measures adopted.
Thank you. We are adjourned.